starters were just announced, and Charles, Kenny, and Shaq all gave their predictions for the reserves, and I am here to give you mine. So let's first go through the official starting lineups for each side, starting with the team captain for the Eastern Conference, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and then we have Kevin Durant and Jason Tatum joining him in the starting lineup in the front court. And then in the backcourt, we have Kyrie Irving and Donovan Mitchell. I think everybody here was a well-deserved player to be a starter in this game. You can say that Joel Embiid was definitely snubbed for one of those front court spots, but you can't make a bad decision there out of those four players. And then in the backcourt, maybe you can make a case for Jaylen Brown since the Celtics have the best record in the NBA. Or you could say maybe a Tyrese Halliburton who leads the league in assists, although he has been injured a lot recently, so I don't know if he would have really qualified for a starter, but I don't think there are any bad picks here in the Eastern Conference. And then in the West, in the starting lineup, we have the team captain, of course, LeBron James. He's always the team captain, always the leader in votes for the entire NBA. And then alongside him in the front court, we have Nikola Jokic, the two-time reigning MVP, leading the Denver Nuggets to the best record in the Western Conference, along with Zion Williamson, who's going to get his first All-Star start here, leading the New Orleans Pelicans to the, I believe, fourth best record in the Western Conference currently. They have been slipping lately because he and Brandon Ingram have been injured, but I think it is a well-deserved spot for him, and it's a very entertaining pick as well. And then in the backcourt, of course, Luka Doncic and Steph Curry. I think you could probably make a case here for a guy like Ja Morant because his team is doing so well, much better record than Curry or even Doncic. But I think Curry and Doncic just have the numbers to back it up, and they are the sole providers of offense on their team. They have to carry the load on that end, and I think these spots are well deserved by all of the starters that were picked. And now moving on to the point of this video, the All-Star reserves. We'll start off with the Eastern Conference. The very obvious pick here in Joel Embiid. He was the guy that could have been in the starting lineup most obviously. He's having an incredible season, averaging over 30 points a game. He is definitely one of the most dominant centers. He's probably the most dominant one-on-one center in the NBA. Nikola Jokic is also a great center, all-around player, but Embiid is an unstoppable force in the paint for the 76ers, and he has been carrying a lot of the load for them. And they are currently, I believe, second in the Eastern Conference right now during the making of this video. So he definitely deserves that All-Star spot. And then joining him in the front court, I'm going to give the nod to Bam Adebayo and Julius Randle as the other two front court spots in the Eastern Conference. I think both of them are well-deserved. Bam really carrying the load for the Miami Heat on the defensive end, as well as scoring 20 points a game for them and dishing out about 3 assists as well. He is the engine for Miami on the defensive end, and alongside Jimmy Butler, who also could have been in this front court spot here, but I do think Bam gets the nod over Jimmy for this spot because of the games played. I think Jimmy's just been out too much for them, but you can definitely go either way for Miami. I do believe they deserve at least one All-Star. And then for Julius Randle, he has had a great bounce back season from last year. He was incredible the year before that, before he got his huge contract extension, but Julius Randle has really made a comeback this year. I think the addition of Jalen Brunson has helped him out a lot, that he doesn't have to be the sole playmaker on this team. He can really just focus on scoring and being that number one option for the New York Knicks. So I think it is very well deserved. Julius Randle averaging almost 25 points a game. He is an absolute beast on the offensive end. And then in the backcourt, we have two very obvious guys once again in Jaylen Brown and Tyrese Halliburton. Brown is the second best player on the best team in the NBA. He could have easily been a starter in this All-Star game, but I think he definitely deserves a nod here. He's having a career year along with Jason Tatum also having a career year. That's not a very easy thing to do for two of your top guys to share the ball and both have career years. Usually numbers go down, but their numbers have gone up, and this duo just continues to get better. Brown learning how to play on and off the ball and picking his moments when to be aggressive and when to let Tatum take over the reins, and I think he has done a fabulous job. And I think that he is a very well-deserving All-Star, as well as Tyrese Halliburton from the Indiana Pacers. This will be his first All-Star appearance. He's leading the league in assists with about 10 a game. He's a great playmaker. He's a fantastic three-point shooter, and he has really led the surprise Indiana Pacers to a play-in spot, which they've been slipping obviously for a while now since he's been out. But if he gets back, I do think they could possibly make the play-in tournament, but we'll just have to see. He's definitely a very, very deserving young all-star player. And then for my last two wild card spots in the Eastern Conference, I'm sure these picks will cause some controversy, but I have Pascal Siakam of the Toronto Raptors. I think he has been fantastic on a struggling Raptors team, and once again, he has absolutely been carrying the load for the Raptors in terms of scoring, rebounding, and defense, as well as playmaking. His assists are way up this year, averaging about 6 a game. He has been a fantastic playmaker for them, a fantastic all-around star for them, and he really deserves more credit than he's getting for sure. I think if he was in a different situation, he might get more notoriety, but in Toronto, especially with them struggling and all the attention being on Scotty Barnes, I think that Pascal Siakam doesn't get enough love, but here he is, and he makes the All-Star team as a wild card selection. And then for the final All-Star spot and last wild card selection, I have Jalen Brunson of the New York Knicks. He's having a career season, averaging over 20 points a game, I believe about 22 a game, and making a fantastic, fantastic pairing in the pick and roll with Julius Randle. I think he's a big reason why Randle is having a career year there as well. And I think that he has really stabilized the New York Knicks, who are always on the lookout for a franchise point guard for them. And I think they found it. One of the best signings of free agency. And it was very controversial when they signed him to all that money, but he is well deserving of it, making a huge difference in New York, and I think he definitely deserves this last All-Star spot. And now, of course, we'll move on to the snubs in the Eastern Conference. Of course, not everybody can make the All-Star team. There just aren't enough spots, and then because it's based on positioning, it also makes it a little more difficult. But guys that could easily still make the team, I don't make the last decision, the coaches do, so these guys could easily be on the team over some of the guys that I picked. But here we go. We have Jimmy Butler. I think he doesn't make it because of all of the injuries he's had this season. He's been out for a little while, missed a couple of games. And then we have Darius Garland, who hurt me to not put him on this list. But again, there's just no space in the backcourt. I think Irving, Mitchell, Jaylen Brown, and Tyrese Halliburton were all incredibly deserving. Maybe he gets the nod over a guy like Jalen Brunson, but I don't know. Then James Harden, once again, injuries. I just feel like he hasn't played enough over some of these other guys that I picked. Drew Holiday, who's always been solid. I feel like he could be a perennial all-star, but he just never really has those gaudy numbers to back it up, but he makes a huge difference on the floor, and he is definitely a winning player. And then DeMar DeRozan, who's having another great scoring season, but of course his team's record, they're currently 11th in the Eastern Conference right now. I just don't think that's good enough to get an all-star. Then Trae Young, his shooting percentages are down, and his team's record isn't that great. The Hawks are in the 8th seed right now, and you would have expected them to take a jump with the addition of DeJounte Murray and everybody, getting healthy over in Atlanta. But he's still averaging 27 points. He could definitely make the team if the coaches think he should. I just think he's having an off year, and maybe this isn't the year for him to be an all-star. Then we have his teammate DeJounte Murray, who's putting up very similar numbers to his numbers in San Antonio, and he's even improved his three-point shooting. But once again, I just don't think the Hawks record is good enough to have an all-star on this team. And then the last snub in the Eastern Conference is Franz Wagner of the Orlando Magic. I don't think he makes it because of team record, but he is having a fantastic season in his sophomore year. I think he's possibly the best player in his draft class, and I think he's shown that this year, really breaking out and really becoming a #1 option along with Paolo Banchero on that Magic team. He's shooting the ball well from 3, shooting almost 50% from the field, around 85% from the free throw line, and also dishing out around 3.5 assists and getting about 4 rebounds a game. He is a legitimate young star in this league, and he didn't make it this year, but he will definitely make the All-Star team in the near future. And now moving on to the Western Conference reserves, starting off here with the obvious pick in Ja Morant. He was the other guy that could have easily been a starter in the Western Conference. He definitely has the numbers to back it up. Memphis has the 2nd best record in the Western Conference and the 3rd best record in the league. They are definitely deserving of having an all-star, and Ja Morant is that guy. Then my next 2 picks here could be a little controversial because of the injury bug hitting both of them, but Devin Booker and Paul George are my next 2 picks for the other backcourt spot and one of the front court spots. I just think Booker has the numbers to back it up, and when he has played with Phoenix, they've been a top 5 team in the Western Conference. And then Paul George, even though he has missed some time due to rest and injury management, I think he has the numbers to back up his all-star selection. And the Clippers are actually gaining some traction here now that Kawhi and him have put together some games. And I think that they will be a lot better getting closer to the all-star break. I think he deserves that all-star spot. He's the top player on that team right now as Kawhi is figuring out, his injuries and getting back into the flow of things. But I think the Clippers definitely deserve an all-star, and Paul George is currently their best player. And then for the last 2 spots, we have 2 guys that I'm very happy to see on this list, and I hope this really happens. And I think it's going to be Lauri Markkanen being a first-time all-star for the Utah Jazz, and Domantas Sabonis of the Sacramento Kings. And we're going to start off talking about Sabonis here. Sabonis is leading the Sacramento Kings to the 3rd best record. Yes, 3rd best record in the Western Conference. The Kings are finally back to being a good team in the Western Conference. Do I think they're a championship contender even though they have the 3rd best record? No, I don't. I don't think they have the talent that some of these other teams that have been struggling recently have, and they definitely don't have the experience in the postseason to legitimately compete. But it's just a great thing for Sacramento to get their team back into the playoffs, and in this fashion, getting this high of a spot in the standings so far, they have absolutely exceeded expectations. Sabonis is a big part of that, as well as De'Aaron Fox. Sacramento is actually building something here, and I hope they continue to build upon it and get better. And then Lauri Markkanen got the last front court spot in the West, and he's absolutely deserving. The guy is putting up a great season, shooting almost 50% from the field and 40% from 3-point range. He is putting together a spectacular season shooting the ball, really looking like, those comparisons to Dirk Nowitzki. He's not as good as Dirk Nowitzki, I know, but you can see where the similarities and the comparisons lie. And he has just been spectacular for the Utah Jazz, who extremely exceeded expectations, especially early on in the season. They've kind of fallen off now, but Markkanen has not slowed down this season, and he is very deserving of that last front court spot in the Western Conference. And then moving on to the 2 wild card spots here, you could have picked a lot of guys. Once again, this could be controversial, but here are my picks. First up, De'Aaron Fox of the Sacramento Kings. I think if anybody deserves 2 All-Stars this year, it's the Sacramento Kings. Like I said, they have absolutely exceeded expectations, and De'Aaron Fox is just as much of a cog in their offense as Domantas Sabonis. He's actually the leading scorer on the team, and he's having a spectacular season, shooting the ball better from 3 than he has in his whole career, and he has really stepped it up and become a fantastic point guard, one of the best in the league. And I think Sacramento just really deserves another All-Star in there. And for my last wild card spot, we have the Oklahoma City Thunder's Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, absolutely having a career year, averaging 30+ points a game. The guy is a force on offense, absolutely gets to the free throw line constantly, He has like that old man's game, that mid-range game that really is tough to defend, and he hits you with a lot of floaters. You know, he can still shoot the ball, but SGA has absolutely made the Thunder much better than anybody ever would have thought they would have been this year, especially with the injury to their recent second pick in the draft, Chet Holmgren. I don't think anybody thought OKC would be competing for the play-in tournament coming into this year, but Shea has absolutely grown immensely, probably a contender for most improved player, and he deserves this last All-Star spot for his first All-Star selection. And now moving on to the snubs for the Western Conference. First off, we have Desmond Bane, who absolutely could have gotten this spot, but first off, he's been facing some injuries recently, and I just don't think there's enough space. I mean, there's so many good players. I couldn't leave off Curry, Doncic, Morant. Maybe you can make a case for Booker since he's also been injured, but he has way better numbers than Bane. And then Fox and Shea Gilgeous, I don't know, it was tough for me to leave him off. I think Bane is absolutely an all-star. I just don't think he makes it this year. And then we have Anthony Davis, who I'm sure a lot of Laker fans are going to be upset that he's not on here. But again, the injuries and team record, the Lakers are 13th in the Western Conference. I just don't think you can give them a second all-star. They already have LeBron James because of the voting, but I just don't think you can give the Lakers a second all-star in Anthony Davis. As good as he's been, and he's been very good when he's healthy, but I just don't think he makes it this year. Then another controversial one here, Damian Lillard, who is definitely back to himself after an injury-riddled season last year. He has struggled with some injuries this year, but when he plays, the Blazers are a 500 team, and they are obviously a lot better when he's on the court. He has struggled to fit in with Anthony Simons in the backcourt, and that is obviously presenting a lot of problems for them, especially on the defensive end. Portland has never really been a great defensive team, and it shows again this season. And they are 12th in the Western Conference. I just don't think the team record gets him there. As good and as great as Damian Lillard is, he could easily make the All-Star team. I probably think he will just because he's so good. Maybe he makes it over a guy like De'Aaron Fox, but I just couldn't put him on there because of the team record. Next up is CJ McCollum, who I think is actually really deserving of an all-star spot. He has the numbers to back it up, and he has been keeping New Orleans afloat, although they haven't been winning a lot, but he's been doing everything for them since Zion and Brandon Ingram went down with their injuries, and he's been the guy for them. I mean, he's the #1 scorer for them when they're out, and he's been putting up great numbers on great efficiency, and I think he could have definitely been an all-star this year, and it would have been his first all-star game. I feel like he's like the Mike Conley of this era, that he can just never make the all-star team. You know, one day he's gonna get there. One day he's gonna get there, just like Conley did late in his career. And then lastly, we have Anthony Edwards, and he has put up a really nice season. Definitely not the leap maybe some people anticipated that he would make, but Minnesota has been having a lot of struggles, and I think he's been able to keep up his pace from last year and improve it slightly. So I think he could have definitely been an all-star. He could have been an all-star last year, and he could have been an all-star this year. I just think Minnesota's record, you know, they're 8th in the West. I feel like people probably thought they would be better after that Rudy Gobert trade. I certainly didn't. That was never going to work, and they should have seen it coming from a mile away. It's one of the worst trades in NBA history, but Anthony Edwards has been playing up to par to be an all-star this year, especially with Cat being injured recently. So those are my snubs for the Western Conference, and a big reason why a lot of these guys didn't make it was because of their team records. And I think a lot of these teams could improve with just 1 or 2 moves at the trade deadline, and I made a video all about it. Check it out right here. And guys, most importantly, have a great rest of your day.